Thomas here with Much Props, going to give you another how-to video. Today I am once again adding something to a Ren Fair costume. Now you have seen me make a bunch of different things over the past couple of months, and I am super excited that we are close upon another Ren Fair season, so I thought it would be super fun to try and add some fairy wings to my wife's mushroom fairy costume. Now I've made a few videos. If you want to go back and check those out, definitely give them a go. I've also designed some things for my Viking costume and some things for my friend's Viking costume. So I thought it would be fun to add those fairy wings to kind of set off my wife's costume and make her even more adorable than she already is. So I am not sure how to make fairy wings. I've never made them. I've never made anything remotely like them. I've watched a couple of videos on YouTube and realized there are 9,000 different ways to make these things. So I'm gonna pick one and see if I can do it. No stress at all. Let's make some fairy wings. I started by drawing a bunch of different shapes of fairy wings. After about 48 variations of silhouettes, I had my wife pick 2 of them that were her favorites. Then I drew a bunch of variations of those 2 shapes. Then she put it to another vote and decided on the outline for the wings that she wanted. I drew about 24 variations of details to make the veins within her shape's choice. Then I took that design and had a pattern to go off of. It was a few hours of back and forth decisions and iterations, but I feel like what I ended up with was something that she really wanted and not what I decided for her. It was going to be strapped on her back, so I definitely wanted her input throughout the whole process to make sure it was something she would love. I took the image, scanned it into my computer, and then increased the size of it to about how big she wanted her wings to be. We determined this by holding a yardstick up to her back and figuring out about how long and how far she wanted to stick out from her body. A big consideration was the fact that she'd be walking around crowds and she didn't want to be that person bumping into everybody. Plus, she has that mushroom hat on, so that limits how high they can go. Getting this position and right scale was important. The big top wing is 15 inches tall and the smaller bottom wings are 12 inches. In the intro, you may have noticed a stack of wire. Not doing this before and watching tons of videos all had different suggestions on how thick a wire you need to use. This is me including my failure again, showing you the wrong wires. My initial thought was to have a 1/4 inch thick wire, and it was way too thick. My original vanes were also made out of galvanized steel, which didn't work either because they were almost impossible to cut. So I had to order some other wire to get it in and hopefully make it in time. I now have tons of support wires that I can put in foam swords and other builds. Taping my wings down to the table, one by one I cut wire to size, molding it around the lines on my pattern. Then I taped them together at the joints with metal duct tape in multiple directions. This was one of those clips where my camera died and I didn't realize it until I started editing this video that I have no clip of me actually taping veins together. In the next clip you'll see the basic idea, but with the main support structure. Each side of her wings gets one large 15-inch and 2 smaller 12-inch wings for a total of 6 that I have to make. Each wing took me roughly an hour and a half or 2 hours to make the metal parts out of. She liked the look of the veins being the same, so I just kept it simple. So once I got the inner parts of the wings done, I was ready to tape them to the support structure. This needed to be fit to my wife's back. She's wearing a low-fit corset that these wings will tuck into between that and her dress. I saw lots of people doing the sides separately, but most ended up with a big wad of wires adding to the weight of the wings. I'm trying to make mine as light as possible for my petite mushroom fairy so that she doesn't have to complain about this thing weighing her down. To add difficulty to myself, I'm going to run just 3 wires, one to each of the corresponding wing positions connected by a U-shape. Taping it up isn't going to be the hard part, it's doing the vinyl wrap in the next step that's going to be a bit tricky, but I'll figure that out in a minute. This is cellophane. I bought 3 different colors, not knowing which one my wife was going to want and giving her options, so now I have a lifetime supply of cellophane because also I tend to overbuy stuff. She initially wanted the blue variation that I bought, but after seeing a video on alcohol ink dyeing of this cellophane, I convinced her that it'd be more adventurous and unique if we tried that. This has a blue to red iridescence to it depending on the side and the angle you look at, so I think it's going to add to a cool color effect to the ink dyeing on top of it. I am using some alcohol ink with a little blender medium to drop organic splotches on the material. Never done this before, but just full sending it. From what I saw and read, you need this to dry for about 24 hours to allow for, I guess, things to evaporate and degas. I only needed to do 2 36-inch strips for all my wings, but went ahead and did 3 just in case I mess up because I like to overplan. Here is the part that terrified me with this build, the reason I have procrastinated, and I am literally finishing this the day before she needs to use them. To lock this cellophane onto the wire, I need to use some iron-on vinyl that will bond with the cellophane and hold them in place. My hands are actually shaking. I am so nervous to mess this up and disappoint my wife. I have put building this off for months because I struggle with self-doubt a lot of times. I pulled up my big boy pants and am full sending it now to hopefully not screw this up in the last minutes of a project. I cut the vinyl to the width of the smaller wings and pray to the fairy gods that I don't mess up 24 hours worth of work at this point. The vinyl will partially stick to the cellophane on touch and fully when heated. Setting my heat gun to 320 or so, I make the initial bond, pushing it together as I go. I start with a cotton swab and eventually just move over to using my fingers to push it in to the cracks. 100% sure if the bond actually took, so I'm going to heat up my Cricut iron thingy that I paid way too much money for and barely use to the same 320 degrees and iron it on both sides, making sure to have a towel in between the wings and the iron. The gray mat is just a wool pad that I use for felting. This prevented me from melting or warping my cutting mat. To cut the extra vinyl off of the frames, I'm using my wood burner. A lot of fairy wing experts said that it was wise to help seal the edges while cutting it and to leave a space between it and the frame. The cellophane and vinyl don't stick to metal, so I decided to quickly tap with a wood burner to kind of melt it snug up. I also went ahead and went back over all of the perimeter edges with more metal tape to clean up that nastiness, because I am extra and need to go above and beyond making sure that this thing does not fall apart 5 minutes into our Ren Fair adventure. Once the wings' colorful bits are secure, it's time to join them all together with more metal duct tape. I don't go all the way up as I want to be able to position the wings a little bit as we walk around the Ren Fair. Walking out in the open, they can be spread out so that you can see them better, but going into shops or through a doorway or sitting down, she'll need to pull them back narrower. I'm really glad that I went with the 3 wires. It kept it very small and lightweight. After the 3 are combined, it's plenty sturdy and holds positions really good. The last addition to this build before we call it a day is to protect her back a little bit from the jagged metal tape. While it's not going to touch her skin, I still want to make sure that the material getting wedged in between her dress and the corset don't mess them up. I cut some strips of faux leather and I'm going to coil it around the taped wire. Securing it down with hot glue, I taped over the edges to lock it all into place, and with that, it is finished. Hopefully you got something from this build and can learn from my mistakes, at least knowing that you don't need a 1/4 inch thick wire. Mine was an 1/8 inch for the main supports and a 1/16 inch for the vanes. We shall see how well this thing holds up at the fair, and I can already tell you, She looks absolutely adorable. I'm going to be taking a lot of pictures and probably waiting for her to take pictures with a lot of strangers that see her. My wife is beautiful. And we are finished. Here is the end result. Overall, I think they turned out okay as long as you're not standing too close to them. There's lots of bubbles, imperfections, things like that. Looking at all the ones that we had seen at the Ren Fair, we didn't really necessarily like the way that some of them looked, or we didn't like the price that some of them had. So I thought I would give it a go, and definitely hoping that this works out well. We'll be testing it out and seeing if it's comfortable to wear for an extended period of time, or if the wind doesn't rip this stuff into absolute shreds. Fingers crossed. And if it messes up, at least I know what knot techniques to use now, or materials. But yeah, maybe you'll try and make one of these yourselves and impress your friends with your ability to turn your wife into a fairy and make her adorable, and everybody wants to stop and take pictures with her. Yeah. She's a cutie. Maybe you'll get some.
Yay!
And inevitably, they're going to ask you, how'd you make that? You can give them one of these. Tell them, much props. Time to go get ready. Maybe I'll post some pictures at some point. Peace out. If you enjoy what I do here on YouTube and you want to see more builds like this one, please consider joining these awesome people listed here with me over on my Patreon to build a bigger, better, more creative community together.